Okay. I'm Monica Grippo. I'm the founder of RHEA, and RHEA is a community to support women navigating pregnancy loss and infertility. Many of us who are in this journey or have been know that the holidays can be such a stressful time because there's just a lot of expectations. There's a lot of gatherings with friends and family. There's a lot of kind of unwanted pressures and questions sometimes that we have to navigate around, when are you having kids? Or when are you going to have a second kid? Or, unsolicited advice a lot of times. And so today's session with Dr. Emily is really just all about navigating some of those landmines that are just embedded in what the holiday season looks like. Just giving us some really practical coping tools and mechanisms, and we really hope for this to be an interactive session too. So please feel free to ask questions. You can um, unmute yourself, go off camera if you feel comfortable. You can drop questions or comments in the chat. I'll be monitoring those. And with that, I will hand it over to Emily to introduce herself and get us started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica. And thank you, our small group, for being here today and anyone who is watching the live recording. My name is Emily. I'm a psychologist and a certified perinatal mental health provider. So I work with individuals and families that are navigating infertility, loss, and pretty much the whole spectrum of reproductive mental health. And I'm one of the co-founders of Phoenix Health. We're an online therapy practice that specifically works and supports reproductive mental health. So really grateful for you all for being here today, where we're going to talk about navigating the holidays. I'm going to share my screen, my slides. Okay. Does that look good on your end, Monica?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Okay. So, like Monica said, please feel free to share any questions, any thoughts in the chat. I am going to be talking about some specific, situations that you might encounter, and if there's anything, any way that you want to apply it personally, or you're comfortable sharing maybe something that you're anticipating happening at a holiday gathering, happy to kind of talk through how the specific technique or tool might work in different situations. So, definitely feel free to drop that in the chat or unmute yourself and if you're comfortable, share it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to navigate the holidays, specifically if you're someone who's going through infertility or who has experienced pregnancy loss or grief, any form of grief or loss. And I just want to acknowledge the weight of the holiday season. For those of us, especially who are going through infertility or loss, the holidays really have a way of amplifying these feelings and making us feel like we're often the only person that's going through it, especially at a time where everyone is seeming really happy and really jolly. It can really highlight the isolation that we're feeling. So, if you're experiencing any dread or anxiety about future holiday gatherings, if you're feeling unseen by all the forced positivity and joyfulness of the holiday season, if you're feeling painful reminders of what's missing right now and just feeling really isolated, you're definitely not alone. And we're going to talk about things, specific tools and techniques that you can use to both internally and externally manage. And by internally, I mean things that you can personally do to cope with your feelings or to manage your reactions to maybe things that are happening outside of yourself. And then externally, a big source of stress is a lot of social interactions that we have around the holidays. So we're also going to talk about ways to navigate difficult conversations and set boundaries with others. There we go. So, what makes the season so difficult are the triggers that we encounter. And triggers are reminders, people, places, things, questions, dates that activate really intense emotions related to our personal journey. And like Monica mentioned in the intro, a big one of these triggers is invasive questions that we anticipate getting answered at different holiday events or seasons. Also, seeing babies, children, pregnant friends, and relatives, while we might be really happy for them genuinely, it can be at the same time really, really hard and really painful to see that. We also might be anticipating a lot of unsolicited advice or more generic platitudes that people might say to us. A lot of family traditions that might highlight our loss or what we feel like is missing can be really painful. And even traditions that do honor the loss, maybe there's a part of us that wants to do them because it's a way of honoring, can still be really painful. And then again, that pressure to really be happy, to put on a bright smile, to perform, and to keep our feelings to ourselves, just all can be some of the common triggers that you might feel around this season. So I'm going to go through 7 strategies that, as a psychologist, I think are helpful for navigating this season. Again, if you want to share a specific situation that you're in or want to talk through how this might apply, definitely feel free to share it. So, the first thing I want to kind of highlight is preparing your emotional toolkit before you go into a situation that you're anticipating is a bit anxiety provoking. So, this is about really proactively planning, which helps increase your sense of control over the situation. And some of the suggestions for doing this are to choose intentionally. We often get a lot of invitations for different events around the holidays, and we have to sometimes take a step back and remember that we are allowed to choose which events we attend and which ones feel manageable. And we're also allowed to say no to the events that we just don't have the bandwidth for. Also, identifying our supports when we go into different situations, like having that person, that friend, that loved one, that community member, like someone in REA that we can text or call when we're having a hard moment. Keeping those people really close to us right now can be really helpful. Having an exit plan when you're going into a situation that might look like driving separately than a friend, setting a time limit, maybe prefacing it to the host that you're only going to stay for an hour, creating a code word with your partner to indicate that you're ready to go. Just kind of knowing that you have that option can sometimes help reduce the anxiety significantly. And then finally, mentally rehearsing some of maybe the responses to questions that you anticipate getting answered or unsolicited advice. We're going to cover some different scripts that you can try. But I do want to say, in regards to mental rehearsal, we do want to do that mindfully. We don't want to replay over and over again situations that we anticipate happening, because that can really drive up our anxiety. So when I'm talking to my clients about this, I typically encourage them, like, let's rehearse it once, let's get a plan of action, and then once we've rehearsed it once, we really gotta try to let it go. I know sometimes that's easier said than done, but we want to avoid replaying it and replaying it. Once we've practiced it once, we have it in our back pocket. We really want to trust that we're good. I'm sorry. So there's a little bit of a lag with switching the slides.
Right.
Strategy 2 is protecting our energy with boundaries. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are really about honoring our needs, and not controlling others. So some ways to deliver our boundaries calmly and firmly. These are just some examples. Again, like, I love if you're comfortable sharing ones that have worked for you or that you plan to use. It could be really helpful to hear different people's um, kind of styles, because I think we all have different styles, different ways of communicating boundaries. What might sound right for me may or may not for you. So it's always helpful to hear different ways of expressing them. But to invasive questions, it could be something as simple and direct as we're just focusing on enjoying today right now, thank you, or really just saying that's personal and I'm not comfortable answering that. When it comes to unsolicited advice, it could be as simple as thank you for sharing, but we have a plan that we feel really good about, or just I appreciate the thought, and from there, just changing the subject. And then having that exit to a tough conversation where you can just simply say, excuse me, I have to go grab some water, step outside, I have to use the restroom. It's okay to get out of the situation. And I just want to emphasize that you don't owe anyone an explanation for your boundaries. And a big one, and I think especially as women, a lot of us struggle with this, especially if we've been raised with some pleasing tendencies, is that we feel responsible for other people's reactions to our boundaries. And the reality is sometimes when you do set a boundary, it can be awkward or it can be uncomfortable. And sometimes, especially as women, we'd rather be uncomfortable than make someone else feel uncomfortable. But we have to remember that boundaries, as long as boundaries are expressed with respect, we're not responsible for how other people take them. Strategy three is really about things that you can use in the moment if you do feel triggered. And I really like these techniques because you can do them in a room full of people without anyone even noticing. These are just simple techniques that help regulate your nervous system. And specifically, they activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us come out of fight or flight mode, the stress response. The first one I share is box breathing. And this one, essentially, you're visualizing what looks like a square, a box, and you're practicing a 4 count breath. So you're inhaling through your nose for a count of 4, and you're kind of visualizing like the beginning of the box or the square, you're holding for 4, you're exhaling through your mouth for 4, and then you're repeating. I'm sorry, you're holding for an additional 4, and then you're repeating. And as you're practicing this breathing, you're visualizing that box. And again, that really helps activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming response that you want. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique is another really great tool because it tunes you into your senses. So this involves taking a moment and looking around and noticing 5 things that you see, 4 things that you feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. And as you're doing it, you're really tuning into each sense, which is really anchoring you to the present moment. And then the final one that I share is a physical anchor. So you can do this at any time, and you're just tuning into whatever your sensory experience is in this moment. So like I can feel my feet on the ground. If I have a drink in my hand, I'm noticing how the cold maybe feels on my hand. I'm noticing the feeling of my clothes on my skin. I'm taking in the room. I'm taking in objects in the room. And it's really directing my attention to my different senses, which has a way of kind of lowering the volume on all of the external noise. And there's a ton of ways that you can practice. These are all essentially different types of mindfulness techniques. For some people, turning on like running to the bathroom, putting on a 5 minute YouTube meditation might work for you too. And that's great. I just want to kind of get you thinking about things that you can try if you are in a moment where you feel emotionally dysregulated. Strategy 4 is really about honoring your personal journey through rituals that feel meaningful to you. And there's definitely no one size fits all. So I just share a couple of different ideas for things that you can try or maybe you're thinking about. But most definitely you want to find rituals or experiences that feel right for you personally. One of them is lighting a candle in remembrance of a lost loved one. It could be giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling without judging that experience. It could be getting some quiet time to yourself in nature, journaling. I think scheduling white space is really important around the holidays too. Our calendars get so full with so many things. that we really need to be intentional about scheduling in time to kind of do nothing or to do something that's more quiet, reflective, like going on a hike by ourselves or, something where we can just kind of recharge because there's a lot that's going to be draining our battery this month. Connecting intentionally with other people who are really trusted and can be very supportive, and creating a personal tradition that feels right to you. Again, this is super personal. I have someone I've been working with a long time who lost a child, and every holiday they purchase some toys for Tots in honor. And the fact that that's become a ritual every year, the grief is very much still there and it's still very painful, but the act of going out and purchasing the items, bringing them to the drop off, like it has a way of breaking up, I would say breaking up the pain for this person. So I do want to emphasize that the grief is still there, the pain is still there, but these things kind of give us a little bit of the space in between the pain. Strategy 5 is about quieting our inner critic. Difficult times, pain often make our inner critic much louder. And one thing I talk to my clients a lot about is that when you're experiencing an emotion, a painful emotion, like grief, it's the emotion's painful enough, but we get into a lot of trouble when we start judging ourselves for having that emotion. And that's really where I see a lot of the distress pile up is it's not just the fact that I'm feeling grief, it's the fact that I'm saying to myself at the same time, I should be over this. Why am I not like so and so who doesn't seem like as much of a mess as I am? It's all that extra judgment. You think of it like a box, and then you're taking dumbbells and you're adding weight, the weight being the judgment and the critical thoughts. It's just adding more and more weight. Eventually, the box is going to crumble. Whereas if we just kind of let the feeling be there, it's still very painful, but it's not as heavy. So the way to kind of go about this, I know again, easier said than done. This is not a practice that's by any means easy, but it's countering it with the self-compassion. So it's acknowledging that you're having the feeling and that you're having the critical thought about the feeling. It's validating it, reminding yourselves that it's completely understandable to feel this way and providing that reassurance. I'm really doing the best that I can with a really hard situation. And then offering you yourself that same kindness that you might offer a friend or a loved one who's going through this. Asking yourself, like, what's one small thing I can do for myself in this moment?
I just wanted to share that this totally resonates with me. I think what made the losses harder and the infertility was having to like grieve not being able to get pregnant naturally or have a baby without doing IVF and like just getting to that point of like not feeling like a failure because I couldn't, do it without IVF. And then still to this day around losses, even after I had my daughter, just not blaming myself and just digging deeper and deeper of like what am I doing wrong? Like why is this happening again? And I think the one thing that pulls me out of it is that like if this was my good friend, going through this, what would I tell her or how would I encourage her to like help have that self-compassion. Like that is the one thing, like it always pulls me back. Like I would never want my friend like being so harsh on herself. So I think that's
Yeah, we're
great.
often the hardest on ourselves.
Yeah, it's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, I really find that it's all the extra judgment of ourselves that's really what makes that painful emotion so much heavier. Um,
Mhm.
when we're able to sit with the emotion, it's then it, then we might have a moment where we feel a little bit of peace and then the grief might return again. And it's a dance, but with that judgment just adds that extra, layer of heaviness.
Yeah.
And this kind of ties into practicing that radical self-compassion that we're talking about. You might offer, a friend or a family member. It's giving yourself that permission to not have to meet external or even internal expectations. I don't think we do a good job in our culture of creating space for grief. There's very much a spoken or even unspoken understanding that you just kind of keep it moving, put on a tough face, especially around the holidays.
Yeah.
So it's about acknowledging the pain that it's difficult right now, validating all of the feelings, the hard ones, the sadness, the anger, and also some of the moments where you might feel a little bit of peace or you might feel some joy, like making space collectively for all of it, lowering our expectations for ourselves. I think the holidays really have a way of making us feel like there's a lot of pressure to have to make it perfect, to have a happy face on. And it really is okay if this holiday season is not that for you. Some years are going to be more just surviving, getting through it till January. And that's completely okay. And again, just remembering just getting through the season is okay, is enough, and that you don't have to perform the happiness. And in my opinion, one of the most important strategies is finding that community and that support so that you're not feeling as alone. That can be peer support, like communities like Rhea, where you're able to connect with other people who just get it, who understand, where you can really share the rawness of what you're going through. The trusted loved ones, I think when we're going through infertility, we've experienced a loss, there are people we love very much who just won't get it, and that's very painful. But that's the reality that for a lot of us, there are people who just haven't been through it, really struggle to understand it. But hopefully, we have at least one or two, a handful of loved ones who may not have even been through it, but just have that deeper empathy way about them, or maybe have been through it and get it on that level. But we really want to lean into the people right now who understand it, even that if that's a very small community of people in your life, they're going to be, they're the saving grace during a time like this. And then the professional support, if it feels really like a struggle to do this on your own, definitely leaning on professional supports like therapy can be extremely valuable and really provide that safe space to process the grief, the anxiety, and to develop the coping strategies. That went much faster than I thought.
No, that's great. Thank you. One thing, like personally, that I wanted to share is my husband and I, and now daughter, always travel back to Chicago. We're from Chicago for the holidays. And one thing that I started doing is scheduling me time, like my self-care time, because I found that on top of just having to navigate fertility and loss and pregnancy and everything, there's also just like the chaos of like traveling and seeing lots of people, and it's exhausting. So, um, I always try to find a local yoga studio and build in like at least two or three yoga sessions. I always schedule a facial depending like before or after the holidays. Like I have built those rituals into my holiday season because like I said, I know it's going to be hectic no matter what because we choose to go back and see family. And so those are just little things that I get to look forward to that make some of the like cringe moments a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love that. I too, when I travel back home, always make sure exercise is something that's important to me as well. So I'm always researching local yoga studios and pre-booking the classes so I know that they're on the calendar. And this year, I'm also trying to be more intentional about scheduling the white space
Yeah.
in between all the calendar events.
Yeah, the alone time for sure is so important. Always, I think I've been doing a lot of that just in general, but especially around the holidays. I agree with you. It can be hard for sure, but so important.